Happy Thursday. For those of you not familiar, my name is Susan. I am the brains behind Susan Barnes Editing, and today we're going to be talking about creating achievable writing goals. This is something that you should be looking at on a regular basis to check in with yourself. So the first thing I recommend that you do is create a writing lifestyle. And by that, what I mean is how many words do you write in a day and how fast? For those of you that have been doing this for a while, you probably have a pretty good idea on what that's going to be, but I do encourage you to try and push yourself, reevaluate, and see what you want your goals to be. For those of you that are new, either estimate or take a week or two, see what you can do comfortably, where you're at, and then use that as your base. So now for this, I actually recommend having 2 daily goals, a minimum achievable goal and an ideal goal. The minimum achievable goal serves 2 purposes. One is it's a small goal that hopefully you can very easily achieve that's going to make you feel accomplished. So whether that's 10 words, 250 words, 1,000 words, you know yourself best and you can set that. But the goal of that is to feel like having something that you can check off your to-do list. It's like making a to-do list and putting something on there that you already done so that you can immediately check something off. That is something that I love to do. It's one of my favorite things about checklists. It's sort of like that where you're like, yes, I feel accomplished. I feel like I'm doing this already. And then the second purpose of the minimum achievable goal is to then, you're already sitting down to write, so you might as well keep writing. It gets you going. It is something that already motivates you to then hopefully move towards that ideal goal. Then the ideal goal is what you would love to write in a day. Now, I want to take a moment to say what you would love to write in a day that's realistic. Now, we would all love to write 10,000 words in a day. I mean, you could write a massive novel in 6 months. It would be phenomenal. But that's not super realistic. What you want to make sure you're doing is keeping an ideal goal that is achievable and realistic, but is something you'd have to push yourself for. So if you're writing 500 words every day comfortably, maybe your ideal goal is 1,000 words. Or if you're writing 1,000 words comfortably every day, maybe pushing yourself to 2,000 words. Seeing what you can do, and this is going to be a little bit of trial and error. The next step in figuring out your writing lifestyle is how to keep it healthy and sustainable. Most of you that are watching this are probably working towards the big publishing goal of being at least a part-time, if not a full-time writer. So with that in mind, why wouldn't you schedule in personal days, sick days, vacation days, mental health days? There are going to be times when you need the day off or when you should take the day off to recharge. So build that into your writing lifestyle. So looking at a month, maybe you only write 20 days out of the 30 days in that month. It's a regular work day schedule. Or switch it up, make it unique to yourself. Maybe you know that you want to always have a day in between each writing day. You can really make it true to your own and figure out what makes it healthy and sustainable to you. So not only can you achieve your next yearly writing goal, but your next 10 years of writing. You want to make sure you're not going to burn yourself out and that you can love the process, because this is such a great process to take part in. The other thing I wanted to mention about your writing lifestyle, so many writers recommend that you must write every day. And that's not bad advice, but it's also not necessarily true. I would put a bit of a caveat on that and say you don't always have to write your main goal every day. You do want to make writing a habit. So whether you intend to write 3 days a week or 7 days a week, you want to make it a habit to the point where not writing on that day feels odd. You feel like you're missing something. It's like, not going to work on a Monday or something of that sort. But you may not want to write your main goal 7 days a week. So maybe you write that 3 days a week or 5 days a week. And then the other days, maybe you free write, or maybe you write on a different project just to let your mind recharge and let your brain sort of rest on one project to be able to bring your best every day to it. The next part of making achievable writing goals is identifying your target goal and your time frame. So diving a little bit into this, everybody's is going to be a little bit different because everybody's writing something different. If you're writing a science fiction novel or fantasy novel, your word goal, your word count is going to be a bit longer, right? So, if it's an urban fantasy, it's probably going to be around 90,000 words. If it's more of an adventure or epic fantasy, it's going to be upwards of 100,000 words and or more. Those can get pretty large. If you're writing a romance, it might be 60,000 to 80,000. Your book is going to be unique to you. It doesn't need to fit directly into the structure, but having an idea of what your reader's expectations are going to be, how long it should be, then you can use that as a target goal to figure out what you need to be writing, working backwards, and then you can adjust as need be. So to give you an example and to have easy math on my end, because math is not my thing, we're going to say you want to write a 100,000 word novel. Maybe you're writing a really long romance, or you're writing a average or probably a little bit short epic fantasy novel of 100,000 words, right? So 6 months, 100,000 words. On average, you're going to write 16,700 words a month. Now, I'm not going to claim to have just done that in my head. I have notes in front of me for the math. 16,700 words a month. That sounds like quite a bit. But again, then divided by 30, that's only 560 words a day. That seems very achievable. Now again though, jumping back to the healthy and sustainable lifestyle, you want to make sure you count in days off, emergency days, things when you might need to take somebody to school or to the doctor, or just take a day for yourself. That is allowed and encouraged. So maybe you're only going to write 20 days. Again, a regular working schedule, 5 days a week. That's 835 words a day if you want to write that 100,000 word novel in 6 months. Now, compare that with your lifestyle. Can you write comfortably 835 words a day? And I would encourage basing that on your minimum achievable goal. So if your minimum achievable goal was 500 words, maybe you want to see if you're going to write this book in 7 or 8 months. If your minimum achievable goal is 1,000 words, maybe you can shorten the timeline, or maybe you can just give yourself more time off. There are other things that you're going to need to do as a writer. You're going to need to do research, you're going to want to do, comp reads, everything like that. So you want to make time for that as well. So keeping that in mind, does this time frame make sense? If it does, phenomenal. If it does not, recalibrate. See what you need to do to get that into a frame with your minimum achievable goal so that you know how long your goal is going to take. Then do a test run. You want to do a test run to make sure what you're estimating, what you think you can do, is actually going to work, because every season is different. What's working right now for people that have kids going back to school or possibly going to school remotely may not be the same thing as what happens in 6 months. So I'd recommend testing it out for 2 weeks. If you can, a month would be fabulous. See how it works. Keep track. Use a habit tracker, whether it's your planner or online. There's a lot of different things you can use, and see, did you write every day? Or however many days you planned on writing. What did you write for those days? How long did it take you? And how are you doing with that schedule? There is no good or bad with this. It's a test run. So if you write 1 day out of the next 30, that's fine. But then that needs to be reflected in your goal. You're only going to write 1 day a month for however many months. It's probably going to take you a while to write that book, but it's your schedule. There is no right or wrong. So then, as I mentioned, recalibrate if necessary. So you want to be writing every day of the week and you want to write 1,000 words, but it's just not realistic. You've got a job, you've got kids, you've got somebody at home wanting what have you, then you're going to need to recalibrate. How many hours or words in a day can you realistically do? Figure out, again, that writing lifestyle that fits your life as it is now. And then from that, back that up and see how that works with the goals you've figured out for the overall book that you're writing. With this, I would also recommend setting a date with yourself sometime in the near future to check back in. Like I mentioned earlier, your life is going to change. It's always going to be different. You might be able to write 3,000 words a day right now, but in summer, when your kids are out of school, it's going to go to 500 words a day, and that's perfectly fine. So make sure your goals reflect that. Maybe for the next 5 months, you're going to write 1,000 words a day, and you know your kids are getting out of school on May 15th. So at that point, then it drops to 500 words a day, and then extends out when your goal is going to happen. The idea is to be able to know how much you should be writing to motivate yourself and be able to see that end goal. Say, all right, by September of 2021, I am going to have a first rough draft. And part of that is motivational milestones. So that's the next portion in creating achievable writing goals, rewarding yourself. That's the best part. Making sure not only do you have in mind what goals you've set, but then rewarding yourself for hitting them. And I'm not talking about finishing your book, because finishing your book is going to be the reward. You're going to feel like the best person on the planet. Writing the end is just a beautiful thing. There are a lot of other milestones in between that you really need to celebrate to make sure you're enjoying the process and that you're rewarding yourself to get to that big milestone. Whether it's, hey, I wrote for an entire week on my schedule, I made my word count, that's fabulous, reward yourself. Maybe it's a month, or maybe it's, hey, I figured out that plot point and I was able to write my words and now I have this draft that's halfway done. You can figure out what works for you as far as rewarding yourself and what that reward should be. Mine would be, Coke and popcorn or going to the bookstore. I know more books because I'm writing or reading books seems a bit odd, but that's what I love, as you can tell. Whatever reward works for you, make sure you're putting it in there and making sure you're regularly checking in with yourself and rewarding yourself for doing such a good job, because that is how you're going to keep yourself motivated to keep going in. With these motivational milestones, and to be fair, with goals in general, I wanted to mention writer's forgiveness. This is I stole this from accident forgiveness. Writer's forgiveness means it's okay to still reward yourself at the end of the month if you've done a phenomenal job, even if you faltered one day or even a couple of days. There are going to be days when life goes awry, but if the majority of your goal has been met, you should still reward yourself. You should still hit that milestone. Now, again, you can figure out what your tolerance is for that, how much is too much forgiveness, because obviously, taking 3 days out of the 5 off, you probably shouldn't reward yourself. But I don't want you to think the goal has to be perfect, that you have to hit those 1,000 words every day, no matter what, to be able to reward yourself. Again, this process is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be exciting, and it's malleable. To keep yourself motivated, in addition to those motivational milestones, you'll want to look into an accountability partner. This is somebody who can check in with you and see how things are going. So whether it's your best friend, your writing partner, your critique partner, or even just the internet, put it out on your social media. Hey, I am going to write a book in the next 6 months. This is something that then people will check in with you. I mean, people are curious by nature. They're going to come to you and say, hey, how's that book going? Or hey, how did the words go this week? They don't necessarily need to check in with you every day and see if you've written your words, but knowing that somebody's going to come to you and ask how it's going is going to make you want to keep going. It's going to make you want to be able to say, yeah, I finished my rough draft of the first half last week, and I think it's going really well, and I'm really excited. It's something to keep you moving even on those hard days. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, which is, what do you do when you fall behind on your goals? And this is a hard thing because it's going to happen. It's like needing to take a day off. You're never quite going to know when it hits, but it is going to hit. And there's going to be days when you just can't make that word count, even though you needed to or wanted to. Maybe you've already used up all of the vacation days you allotted yourself for this month, and man, you still didn't hit that word count yesterday. A, it's okay. It happens. B, don't put yesterday's word count on today's goal. I cannot stress this enough. You're going to feel that way. If you've gone through anything like NaNoWriMo, you're going to know that if you have a really tight goal, there's going to be the want to put any missed words on your goal for today to make up for that time. So, writing 50,000 words in a month, like with NaNoWriMo, if you miss a day, you're going to feel the need to put those extra words on today's goal to try and make up for that time because you only have a short amount of time. The beauty about setting your schedule here, unlike with NaNoWriMo, which is built to push you, this is doing things on your own time. The goal of this, the biggest goal of all of these goals, is to make writing a habit. So whether you want to finish a book in 6 months, a year, 6 years, that's up to you. But you want to make sure, again, if you didn't write today and you were planning on writing, you're going to feel odd, like you're missing something, like something's not right in your life because it is such a habit. You feel like it's something that you should do. So instead of putting yesterday's words on today, just focus on today's goal. So you missed your 500 words yesterday. 500 words is all you have to do today. That is still your minimum achievable goal. Now, again, as we talked about before, the hope is you're going to sit down, write those 500 words. It's going to be super easy. Maybe it's flowing, and maybe write 750 words. Well, you've already now made up half of what you missed yesterday, but it wasn't a requirement. The moment you start to push yourself, oh my gosh, I gotta make this up. Oh my gosh, I gotta do this. The story is going to start feeling blocked. You're gonna feel like you maybe have to do it, which is going to make the story feel stilted, or maybe you're going to feel pressure because you've only got so much time. There are days when you're going to write more, and there are days when you're going to write less, and it's going to be flexible enough to hopefully help you make up that time. If it doesn't, if for some reason you've missed now 2 weeks, for the last 2 weeks you haven't been able to write and you're not going to be able to make that up, again, don't panic. It's okay. What then you need to do is recalibrate. Maybe it's not a matter of saying, all right, those 2 weeks are in the past, I'm just going to keep focusing on my minimum daily goal. But maybe now it's, okay, well, why didn't I make those last 2 weeks? If it was an emergency, perfectly acceptable. If it was just, you know what, I couldn't do it, maybe it's something that you need to look at. Maybe your life has changed to a point where, all right, I need to recalibrate, and now my daily goal is only 250 words, 10 words, however low you need to go to make yourself sit down in front of that computer and be able to write. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with recalibrating. It's making sure that you're moving forward and hitting those goals. It is the best thing that you can do for your writing career ever. Finally, as you're working through this, whether you fall behind, whether you're on track, keep in touch with either your accountability partner or your editor. So a lot of you are probably already working with an editor. You might already have somebody, beta reader, something like that, that you know is going to be reading the book when you're done. Very rarely will you be on a timeline that you can't adjust, especially if you're self-publishing. You might be able to push the book back. You may not want to. And again, it depends on the situation. If you are just not wanting to sit down and write, maybe that tight timeline will force you to do it. But if something goes wrong, or if, the book is completely turned out differently than you were expecting and it's going to need a lot more edits, being able to adjust that timeline is great. But even if you're in a traditional publishing contract, a lot of times you're going to feel a bit more time constraint because you're going to have a specific date that was in your contract. You owe this editor a book by X date. And that is a lot of pressure. But again, I highly encourage you to talk with your editor. So if you know you're 3 months into your 6 months that you allotted yourself and you're not even close to halfway through and you don't see that changing for the next 3 months, reach out to your editor as soon as possible. Editors are there to help. They're there to help with your schedule. They're there to help with your story. They're there to be a sounding board. So that's something that, keep in contact with them, talk with them, and see how they can be helpful to you, whether it's figuring out these writing goals, whether it's figuring out what your next steps are in the story to get you over that writing hump, or just to keep you moving as you're writing through and figuring out what you want to start next. I'm so excited to see what you guys start writing in 2021. If you have any questions about how to set up your goals, any questions about your publishing goals or your story in general, I would love to chat with you. Feel free to reach out either on social media or through my website. I'm here if you need, and I can't wait to see what you write next.